Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, we're going to talk about lone wolf prepping, right? Lone wolf survival. People always talk about, well, I just do it myself because I hate authority and screw the man and nobody's going to tell me what to do. I mean, you see the sexy biker guy who's, lone wolf, no club, because I don't need anybody. I'm on my own. I don't want to follow rules. That's why I'm a wild man. That's why, and also a lot of people have bad ideas. So joining a club with people in bad ideas, I mean, look how the government's worked out. It doesn't really help you necessarily, but it turns out, it's like, do I stay single my whole life or do I get married? Does that help or hurt? There are different, all these things weigh and there are pros and cons to everything. And I wanted to dig into it and talk about the pros and cons of each. But even more specifically, I want to talk about your odds. Like if I run to the woods by myself, is that great? Or if I run to the city or I run to the suburbs, wherever, is it different, right? Is it better to be alone or not? If I'm in the Ozarks, right? Anything, who knows? So bottom line is the Bible always, Ecclesiastes 4:9. Kevin, did you have that? Is if, two are together, it's better than one. Is that the?
Yeah. And there's that old adage, if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone, right?
Exactly.
So I think there's definitely benefits to each. There's benefits to taking care of yourself, and there's benefits of having somebody to help take care of you and you take care of them.
Right. That's it. It was Ecclesiastes 4:9 was two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. And, I mean, that's true, right? You definitely, it's like a force multiplier, right? That's what they talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely, some real truth to that. So, keep that in mind. But let's kind of dig into it. Let's start out, I think, in the woods. If we go survival in the woods. Now, I did ask AI to kind of calculate some odds, but I got to say, where the hell would it get those odds from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's really tried? Well, I guess wilderness survival you could probably do, but who's tried to be survival guy in an apocalypse situation in a city? What do you compare that to? Who knows?
Right.
So anyway, as a lone wolf in the wilderness, your odds are low to moderate, 20 to 40% long term beyond a few months.
Mm-hmm.
And I think obviously this becomes, training and, who was the guy, Steve Brill from, the forager guy, Wild Man Steve Brill or whatever.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
If you're that guy, your odds, I'm sure, are way better than mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're Navy SEAL and been trained in all kinds of environments and know about, foraging food, again, if you're a regular camper and I don't mean you have the fancy camper tent thing that, you pull behind or you set up in the back of your pickup truck and you got the camp stove with the gas and, tarps and everything else, obviously you're going to want to bring as many things that you can to help your odds, right? If you bring camping gear into the woods, that's going to make your life a lot better for your survival. But how much can you carry as one person, right? backpacking one thing into the woods, if you have to bring in 2 stoves into the woods, if you have 2 people, you only need to bring 1 stove, and
Mhm.
therefore you can carry extra supplies, that kind of thing.
Right.
Um, just think about it like that. That's how your odds, would end up changing. Um, but yeah, they said 20 to 40% long term, depending on preparation, weather, wildlife, and injury are a big thing. That's people don't get. Like a fall, you sprain your ankle or you twist a nerve in your back because I kind of like threw out my back this week, and it just all of a sudden when you're like crippled with pain, you're not picking up heavy things and
Right.
whatever. And that can be the end. Oh, I can't go get, and it's nice, I gotta say, for your sanity to talk to other people. Um, that can definitely play a factor.
Yeah, and I think that's a big deal for most people. I've actually interacted with a lot of our listeners, and the truth is most of them are assholes. So I
Oh,
mean that you can leave
Kevin.
that out if that's your case and you don't like people, then you maybe won't feel as lonely as other people would in the woods.
Yeah, but remember, you who is watching me right now, you're not the one he's talking about. It was another one. So don't even worry about it. It wasn't you, dude. It wasn't you. So yeah, I'm just saying. It was the other guy. Kevin's a jerk, man. I don't know how we take him on the show here. Uh Shelter building, right? That's definitely a skill that's going to change your odds if you can secure a
Right.
nice shelter.
Hunting and tracking, being able to build a fire. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to have for a lot of skills that you have to have if you're going to be functioning alone on in any environment, but especially in the woods.
Especially in the woods. Yeah.
If you you have to have resourcefulness. You have to be able to adapt to the environment you're in. You go to bed and it's 45 degrees out, and you wake up the next morning and it's freezing cold and there's 6 inches of snow on the ground. You have to be able to adapt to that.
Absolutely. Also, like mental health, right? I think any of us in any of these environments, how strong you are mentally and at peace you are being by yourself
Hmm.
is going to be a big factor. Some people need that constant communication with people, that reassurance, and in order to function, and they really start to lose it as they're alone and isolated. You see like shows like Alone and that kind of thing. You see how depressed people get when they
Yeah.
don't have somebody with them, over time. And it doesn't take that long for some people to start to spiral. Whereas some people, you'll see some of the guys are like totally at peace with it, or some of the girls, they're
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, no problem. You
Yeah,
know,
I always notice in those shows, the people that last longest are the ones that are really good at foraging. The ones that really can look around their environment and know what they can and can't eat. You know, and there's some foods that you can eat, but they just don't give you any real calories. Like you can eat leaves off of an oak tree, but it's not going to help you out. It's
no, it's not gonna fill
not
your
going to
belly.
nourish you. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot to say about knowing your environment. If you took me and dropped me off in the desert somewhere, I wouldn't know what the fuck to do. That's not where I have experience. But put me in in the mountains, in the woods somewhere, and I've got a lot better chances.
Right, right. Then you're the guy, and that's kind of the beauty of it. So no, that's absolutely, a good way to be. It's, somebody mentioned in the comments, you have a dog, right? If you have any kind of companionship, I feel like it's going to up your odds. Also, I feel like it would help you with your vigilance, right?
Hmm.
It's one thing if you're both kind of listening as you're sleeping, to hear things creeping up on you. Another thing that people don't think about is navigation skills, being able to navigate. But let's really talk for a second about one versus multiple, right? So, one, when you have another person you're multiplying your skills, right? We all have different knowledge and have seen different things over the years. So that's going to really, help and make a difference. But again, being able to decide quickly and just act on your own is also kind of cool. Not having a debate, not having somebody who pisses you off all the time. That probably helps. Probably helps with your peace of mind. So it's always a trade-off. But, we'll kind of break it down at the end, decide decide if which we think is better in each situation, but it's there's a lot going on and a lot to factor in. Now let's shift over. Kind of, what about in the city, Kevin? uh AI, let me give you, AI puts 10 to 30% long term because of the high population density, and that means there's a lot more threats out there. um Short term, they say 50 to 70% if you stay low key. But if you're out looting and, interacting with disease and all kinds of other stuff, things escalate quickly down a bad road. What are your thoughts,
Yeah.
Kevin?
Well, there's a big difference between looting and scavenging, right?
Mm.
So if somebody listening to this podcast is out, that they're scavenging is what they're doing, right? They're getting resources for survival. It's not looting.
Smart.
Anybody else, those people are looters.
There's the looters. Well,
Yeah.
also, I think in the big angry mob, you're asking for trouble. Now, I know you're thinking, well, there's safety in numbers. If there's the bunch of us, we're gonna. But yeah, I think if you're stealthy and you wait for the mob to leave and you just slip in and out.
Yeah. Well, I think
Obviously.
I think in urban situation, you're going to want to go, if you're the lone wolf, you want to go as like the gray man, the person that's not noticed. You want to be low key,
Yeah.
right? You want to have a lot of situational awareness, like they say when you're in a crowd of people, look for behavioral clusters, like groups of people that are acting a certain way, right? Keep your eye out for concealed weapons. Keep an eye out for what people's emotional state is. If people are panicking, that's a lot more dangerous than if people are, just kind of curious about what's going on. Watch out for people with inappropriate clothing,
Nope.
like if they're wearing a heavy coat and that doesn't seem right because they're probably concealing something, right?
It's like the governor with a sawed-off shotgun in there.
That's right. Unattended bags. And environmental hazards like choke points and bottlenecks. You want to be conscientious of things like that especially when you're in a group of people and you're trying to like navigate through. It can be hard to get a good understanding of your surroundings when you're just trying to pass through, and you can find yourself in a dangerous situation where you're in a confrontation and there's no easy way out. I think that there's you want to talk less and observe more when you're in the city. Keep your mouth shut, especially if you're by yourself. Pay attention to what everybody else is doing. Always have an escape plan. Always have a plan, a backup plan on how to get the fuck out of the area you're in.
I like that.
But as far as I'm concerned, if I was in the city, my plan would be to hunker down initially. And
Right.
then get a temperature of what's going on before I try and get out of any place.
I think observing is a big thing, right? Find a high point and kind of observe and see what's going on. I think that definitely would, be helpful to have a lay of the land, but also a lay of what's going on, right? An understanding of who's doing what and where, and kind of identifying friend or foe, right? Like seeing, hey, that gang, everybody they come across as an individual, they're beating the crap out of them and taking all their stuff. That's something to note. Whereas, other people are running around crazy. I think having a firearm is a big thing. I think that would be a game changer in any of these environments, right? It really, helps. Now, obviously, firearm isn't as effective against a grizzly bear as it is against a 150-pound guy. But who knows? You decide the right, thing for your environment, right? That's really what it comes down to. Bartering, being able to kind of trade things, having something to kind of get people to go away might be good. I also
Yeah.
think if you're like aging in the city, having multiple cash locations or at least a fallback location, right? Hey,
Mhm.
if my building gets overrun, do I have somewhere else I can go that and I think most cities there's enough that you could stash a barrel with some supplies somewhere and kind of go unnoticed or some kind of obscure,
Mhm.
thing. I mean, I know not like really just like behind the dumpster or something because when the garbage truck comes, oh, there's all this cool stuff there, but you know, there are places to hide things. Think of the sewers.
Mhm.
Think
Yeah.
about,
There's
there's different things. And again, workers go in the sewers and whatever. You got to think of your day to day and how things, play out. But just look around. There's options, right?
Mhm.
Um, what else, Kevin? People in the city is constant noises and background stuff going on, and that's kind of scary. Because it just makes it hard to isolate the good and the bad. And I think you need to kind of slowly learn the rhythm of the city and what's going on. In the city, you're going to have disease. You're going to have waste, building up right away. You're going to have sickness spreading right away. Because, dude, if the plumbing starts backing up, that kind of stuff, it all turns bad pretty quickly.
Mhm.
There's a lot of nastiness in a city, and that's before things, services shut down.
Right.
But you stop taking out the garbage and stop showering, and there's a lot of people, it could be bad. I like the like apartment or rooftop, but also remember you're trapped there, like
Right.
that you limit your escape routes. So that's something, maybe set up a zip line or something, I don't know. But I mean, there's ways, they do have those like ladders that you can drop out a window that you can buy that you hook on and can,
Mhm.
some will do, 10 stories or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was in Albany a few months ago for a show, and we were staying in an apartment there. It was on the third floor. There's one staircase, and I was like, my wife was a little bit freaked out because if there's a fire, that's it. I was kind of like looking at windows, like, oh, I'd have to jump out of this window, like down 10 feet to the next building, like to get out of here if I couldn't use the stairs. Little bit hazardous if you're trapped in that situation. If
Right.
somebody's banging on your front door trying to get in, you can't get out. You just have to stand your ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I mean, that's it. You're trapped and, a rat in a cage. I hate to say it, and that's the city and a lot of alleys. And if you're not familiar, you know, I feel like people master their block or their little nook
Right.
of, where
Hmm.
they work and where they are. But in a city, most people aren't that familiar with everything.
Hmm.
And there is like a lot of homeless who already, understand the city and are there, like understand the streets, right? You can live your whole life in a nice apartment and you're not in the same world and culture as the tent community that's living over behind the building next door.
Yeah. And if you live in the city, I recommend having a homeless person. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's a good thing. So
Yeah.
that right away defeats the lone survivor,
You're
Kevin.
already, yeah, you're already ruining it. But I mean, give the homeless guy $15 a week to keep an eye on your stuff, and he'll keep an eye on your stuff for $15 a week.
It's just got to know that there's more coming next week.
Right. I mean, inflation, so maybe it's $20 a week. I don't know what the going rate for homeless people is at this point, but
No,
it's
Kevin.
not much. They don't have anything, and they got time on their hands.
Ay, ay, ay. All right. Well, let's talk about the suburbs. Suburbs are a little different. Uh, the odds they say are better than the city, 40 to 60% long term. They balance of resources and space, a little less congested. I guess gangs take an extra 10 minutes to get to you. The idea is with gangs is as soon as they loot everything good in the city, they're going to keep going and spread out.
Hmm.
If the city smells like crap and turned into a cesspool, they're going to say, hey, all these other people in these nice rich people homes, they look better, like they're better off. I'm going to go out there. And that's what they do. Because a lot of city people um kind of shop day to day, or everything for the next 3 days, where it's the suburbs, you usually have a week's supply of food kind of thing
Right.
in a house. I mean, more so, right? I mean, I know you're thinking, well, I go to the grocery store every day. Like, it's weird. People have different lives and lifestyles. So, but yeah, I think your odds of having more food storage, well, because they have bigger houses in the suburbs than
Right.
you do in an apartment and that kind of thing. Plus, a city lifestyle, I feel like you're always used to having everything at your fingertips. And so, because of that, it's not as in demand to have, more stuff on hand and stockpiled. So, 40 to 60% long term, 70 to 90% with a stocked home and for short term.
Mhm.
But you have roaming scavengers, like I said, probably coming out of the city.
Mhm.
Eventually, you're going to run out of fuel, that kind of stuff. I think one of the things to think about, both the city and the suburbs, is maybe having some kind of an escape vehicle.
Yeah.
Be that maybe a four-wheeler, maybe a well-stocked car that you feel like you'd be able to push through congested roads or chaos, that kind of thing. Some kind of bug out vehicle.
Yeah,
And
get one of those brush guards for your vehicle.
there you go.
Yeah, they say it's a brush guard, but you can ram shit pretty good with those things, you know? If you gotta push somebody out of the way,
A cow pusher.
there you
Yeah,
go.
there you go. Yeah, you can move some things out of the road. You could be all right with that kind of thing. So that's something to think about. But also suburbs, right? People think of lawnmowers and lazy guys out, maybe a Hawaiian shirt. Hawaiian shirts could be making a comeback if you're in the suburbs, whereas it's not really the play in the woods. So again, another um stealth and evasion, gray man tactics, like Kevin talked about. Gray man, the Hawaiian shirt works in the suburbs. You see that?
That's right. That's right. That's
Whereas
just a dad. He's getting a steak
right,
for his grill, having the kids over for a barbecue.
exactly. In
That's
the
normal.
city or the woods, both of those, the Hawaiian shirt, you're like, whoa, what's that guy up to? He might be carrying a gun.
Yeah,
But
and I
in the
actually
suburbs, no.
somebody just mentioned an electric bike. I actually just got one, so I'll let you know how that
Do you?
works out. They're
Nice.
I've ridden them before. They're fun,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They're fun, but
Again, caching works for any of these scenarios, right? For the city, for the woods, for the suburbs. Having caches and resources spread out, I think, is definitely a good way to, be. Uh, Again, the suburbs, though, you still run into disease and waste, starting to build up. Obviously, a little bit slower than you'd have in the city, but that's something,
you can do like my neighbors do and just burn your trash. I came home yesterday and the whole neighborhood smelled like somebody was burning tires.
yeah, sure, a little
Just
black
burn it.
smoke. Oh,
It's
man, it's
fine.
an ugly world. I think, all right, so in the suburbs, home fortifying. And what about like really barricading your house? Like, we did an episode a while back, it was a long time ago, on home defense
Mhm.
and setting up your home for defense. But, we talked about having a fence in your yard, right? Like having an obstacle to get through. And I'm not talking about like it has to be a big stockade. I'm saying like a little chain link or a picket fence. It just keeps people from running up. It has a barrier,
Mhm.
and it also helps you define who has ill intent.
Right.
Right? Sometimes you get these like gang kids kind of walk through and will like walk through your yard, like whatever. But if you got a fence that's some kind of barrier,
They have to
and
actually climb over
they
it.
climb over it, then hey, this he's got intent here. There's
Mhm.
something going on, you know. So that's definitely something that you want to, be aware of. So a fence is definitely an asset. Think about the bushes and the shrubs and the things like that. Are they giving someone a place to hide as they approach your house? That's always the big thing. Like sometimes people have like tall bushes in front of their windows and that kind of thing. And it actually gives people a place to stay concealed while they're trying to break into your house.
Mhm.
So that's something to be aware of. Just look around and know your neighborhood, knowing your neighbors and being aware of those people. But again, that kind of deviates from that lone wolf kind of thing. That once you community up, you actually enhance your your area there. Somebody said that maybe things like a gnome or something out front filled with tannerite, maybe that's a
Mhm.
good idea. And that way when people approach, you got garden gnomes that it's like claymores or something out in the yard. I don't know. That probably sounds like you need to check your local laws and find out what's appropriate in your neighborhood.
Mhm.
um, Kevin and I are not attorneys and don't really give out legal advice. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe someplace in the United States it's legal to put landmines in your front yard, and I don't know where you live, so
right. Or maybe you're not listening in the United States.
how would they even know that you have a landmine unless they're stepping on it, you know?
Mm. Kevin, that sounds like a horrible world that you're promoting. Anyway, so again, entertainment purposes is what I want to point out here for everyone.
Uh-huh.
The I have to run a banner that says don't listen to
Don't listen to anything we say.
Kevin. Really, I need the "Don't listen to Kevin" banner that just
Yeah.
scrolls across the bottom when we do the podcast. But no, absolutely. But there are things you can think of. Obviously, we're talking now about a world with a breakdown in society,
Mhm.
where
Yeah, and if
the
you're getting
general
in that
rules are
situation,
not available, right?
some of the things that you might wanna do is have pieces of plywood cut out the shape and size of your windows. You know what I mean? Something that you could just put up over the window. Um,
Absolutely. I
something that
actually
you can
do. That's something
actually
like, yeah,
yeah, something you can actually barricade your door with, like not just a chair, but I mean like a steel bar that you can put across it.
absolutely.
When things start breaking down, and seems like in some places they have, like Minnesota is going fucking wild right now. If I lived in the suburbs of Minnesota or um, Minneapolis,
Yeah,
I'd be very conscientious about my security right now.
yeah. People at the flip of a switch kind of turn.
Mhm.
And I gotta say, all of a sudden law enforcement's like, yeah, you're on your own, it's kind of rough in there, I'm not coming in.
Right.
And you're like, but you said you'd always protect us and
Mhm.
we voted for you. And
Yeah.
these things can escalate quickly. So it's absolutely something to keep in mind that you might have to prepare for yourself. Uh, One of the things I found is you can go to Tractor Supply and buy a big roll of barbed wire. Not that expensive.
Mm.
Just saying, you never know.
Yep.
But again, you don't want to make it look like you have something that needs to be protected, but subtle things, they always talk about putting things on like windowsills to like get people's hands. Remember back in the day, again, this is entertainment purposes only, but back in the day when everybody used to steal car stereos, right? That used to be a thing in like 70s and 80s.
Mhm.
And people would put like razor blades under there and stuff. So when people would reach up under the dash to get it, they'd always, and like crazy things, criminals, obviously,
Yeah.
but they were catching criminals and people would be like, yeah, I found a fingertip in my, in my car the other day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's weird, but that's it. It's a different world. You always hear about these crazy things, but you see, like when people are in the woods, they'll bear proof their cabin by they'll take a board and put nails through it, and they'll lay out, with the spikes kind of to make it hard to climb on. Uh, One of the
And the
guys,
city, they do that for homeless
yeah,
people.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've seen it. One of the architects in New York in Poughkeepsie, uh, there was a lot of stone walls, and they would all have jagged points on the top. and it
So
would
people
all
couldn't
make it
just sit there.
comfortable to, yeah, nobody's sitting there, nobody's climbing over it without discomfort,
Hmm.
right? You just want to discourage things without, hey, I have a big wrought iron fence and, electric wire around my house, but you discourage by having good tactics,
Hmm. Right.
That's something you might want to think about. I'm just saying hypothetically. Uh so yeah, find a way to secure your house, make it a little, but again, without making it a target. It was funny, one of the prepper books I had read, they had a cabin in the woods and they left it with the front door like slightly ajar, and they left like empty cans strewn about the yard, and
Hmm.
it looked like the house had already been looted.
Right.
And when you went in, nothing was obvious, and all the stuff was like really stashed and stockpiled, hidden.
Hmm.
So that way, when they weren't there, because to kid yourself and think, oh, in the middle of the woods, somebody can't just break a window and climb in. You're an idiot, right?
Right.
Now we can talk about the 3M film, and you could make it hard for people. That's cool. I like that. But you know, but actually making things look like there's nothing of value there is another step that might really help things. So that's something to consider. But what do you think overall, Kevin? Lone wolf, is that something you'd be into, or would you want to be in a group or a community?
Yeah. Well, I think best case scenario is never the lone wolf style.
Okay.
I think having a group, having a family, having a group of like-minded people around you is probably a lot safer than trying to do it alone. If I was trapped somewhere, if I was trapped in the city and I was trying to get out, it would be a lot easier to do it by myself than
Absolutely. And then
watch out
hook
for
up
wife and
later.
kids
Right.
and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think if you're in a rural area, I think it's better to have a good relationship with your neighbors, have your
Yeah.
family close by. You know, I think that's
No,
definitely a lot safer.
yeah, I think that's right. I think having people to rely on, like you said, if you have to move fast, you want to be by yourself. I mean, it's easier to be stealthy, if you're dragging a chain of 20 people, but then that's where you kind of have to find that balance where do we look like a force to be reckoned with,
Right.
or are we stealthy and try and sneak away? You always try and find that happy balance, find a way to make it work. But that's the beauty of it. But yeah, I think lone wolf, making your own decisions and doing things your own way, it's really cool. It brings something to the table. But the bottom line is it's not really better. It's not for the benefits. I think the benefits of having help, having assets, having other people thinking about things, having other people to stay up at night to be on watch,
Hmm.
to make sure things are secure, to that you can't be alert every minute while you're doing things. Having somebody for that really wins out. And I would have to agree with you that it's a thumbs down for, lone wolf when it comes to that. I think it's not the way to be.
Hmm.
Also, when you're at the club and there's like 50 guys who want to beat you up, if there's two of you, it's just better because at least you have somebody to share the story with about that time you got your ass kicked.
Right. Right. And if you ever do find yourself in a situation where 5 people are kicking the shit out of you at once,
Yeah.
the trick is you just got to pick one person and bite their fucking finger off.
Oh.
Take a chunk out of their body, scare them,
I
because you're
thought
still
you
gonna
were
get your ass kicked. But
I
at
thought you
least
were going for the testicles. No?
no, just bite their fucking nose off. You got to
Oh.
pick one person and make an example out of them.
All right. Because then they're like, ooh, that guy's a psycho. So, no, I see that. I see that a lot. So anyway, you guys have comments, thoughts, concerns. We love to, appreciate it when you reach out to us. Definitely put it, in the comments. We'd love to hear what your ideas are and thoughts on Lone Wolf. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, right? That's always a big plus. The likes always help out. Hey, that's why we're here, right? Because we're really desperate to see that like on the bottom. That's why we do it, not because we enjoy doing this, because that like actually does not really much for us, because turns out, I don't know who's even watching, right? That's what I say. But anyway, you have a show idea, you can email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. We do answer emails. We are pretty cool about getting back to people. So we appreciate it. We appreciate you guys. And I would say with that, stay safe and we'll talk to you guys next week.